Live and Baton Rouge proud. This is your local election headquarters.
Good evening and welcome to your local election headquarters. I'm Dion Guillory.
And I'm John Burns. We have complete team coverage tonight of results from key local races and other items on the ballot today.
We have teams spread out across the region tonight to bring you results and reaction to the results as the numbers continue to come in. Fred Childers and pollster John Couvion are here in studio with us to break down the numbers and how these races will impact you.
Harrison Golden is at the Secretary of State's office and Amber Smith is at Congressman Garrett Graves' watch party.
All right, let's start with a look at some of the big results and the races from the big races tonight. We're going to start with this one, the Secretary of State.
Right, Secretary of State, where incumbent Kyle Ardoin, of course, looking to keep the job he took over after former Secretary of State Tom Shedler resigned just a few months ago. And as you can see there, he's got 21% of the vote, with Gwen Collins Greenup close behind it with 19% and Renee Fontenot-Free at 16%. So looks like there will be a runoff in this one. And
that's what a lot of people were expecting. Also, we want to go to Local 33's Capitol correspondent Harrison Golden. He has been with Kyle Ardoin all night at his headquarters, and he's going to break down the race and what's going on there. Harrison, good evening to you.
Dion, good evening. We're set to hear in just a few minutes from Interim Secretary of State Kyle Ardoin, supposed to be speaking with us again very shortly here as we get the projections here that he will be in that runoff December the 8th for Secretary of State. Again, an elected term of it. Of course, he was named an interim Secretary of State in May, as you just mentioned here, but he's seeking the elected term as the Chief Elections Officer here in Louisiana. And we can also confirm here, or at least project, that Gwen Collins Greenup will be in that December 8th runoff on the Democratic side. Now, again, if you look just down the ballot here, Gwen Collins Greenup is the first Democrat down ballot to appear on that item. So again, perhaps a little bit of help for her tonight. But again, at any rate, those two narrowing down that field of 9 that we had this morning. Again, that field having gotten a little bit more fierce over the past few weeks as allegations loomed over Acting Secretary of State Ardoin's handling of voting machine contracts and sexual misconduct policies within the State Department here in Louisiana. But again, in many ways, the Secretary of State, Kyle Ardoin, set to speak in a few minutes, defending his record as he now heads against now Democratic challenger, Gwen Collins Greenup, December the 8th. Guys, back to you.
All right, Harrison Golden there for us. Also, we want to talk about 6 congressional races that were up on the ballot tonight. Here is District 1, where incumbent Steve Scalise, he faces several challengers, but hey, let's take a look at the numbers now, and you can see right there, a huge win for him tonight.
Yeah, with 83% of precincts reporting, our expert in studio tonight has called this one. Steve Scalise with 72% of the vote in that one. Closest challenger there, Tammy Savoy, you see. Now, District 2 features another longtime incumbent, Congressman Cedric Richmond, representing that district since 2011. Looks like that's going to continue as well.
Yeah, you can see 76% of the precincts reporting, but Cedric Richmond with 79% of the vote to go ahead and keep his seat. All right, let's move on to District 3. The incumbent here has only served the Acadiana area in Congress since December of 2016, but it seems as though he's going to keep his seat too. Yeah,
this was the race where some political pundits had thought that Clay Higgins, if any one of the 6 congressmen running for re-election were to face a runoff, it might be him. But as you can see, with 95% of precincts reporting, Clay Higgins with more than a majority of the vote at 56%. Moving to District 4, where incumbent Mike Johnson, with 97% of precincts reporting, has 64% of the vote there.
Yeah, and his challengers there not getting enough to take the seat from him. Mike Johnson's going to keep his seat. Another incumbent staying in this position. All right, moving on to District 5. Another incumbent here looking to win re-election tonight is Republican Congressman Ralph Abraham. And as you can see, the numbers there, 67% of the vote for him, with 99% of the precincts reporting Ralph Abraham, the Republican there, keeping his seat.
Finally, in District 6, Congressman Garrett Graves with another big win tonight, 71% of the vote with 88% of the precincts reporting. Just a really big night for incumbents in Louisiana.
Yeah, we see them all keeping their seats tonight. And speaking of Congressman Garrett Graves keeping his seat, we want to send things over to Local 33's Amber Smith, who is live tonight from the Renaissance Hotel in Baton Rouge at Congressman Graves' watch party. Amber?
Well, Dion and John, you said it best. A big night for incumbents. Here at the Garrett Graves watch party at the Renaissance Hotel, things are starting to simmer down quite a bit, but a little after 9 o'clock, Graves took to the stage to talk to his supporters out here today and thank them for all of their support. And we actually just caught up with him about 20 minutes ago, and he had a lot of things to say. He was saying this is the highest percentage he's had in any of his races, and he credits that to some of the things that he says he's accomplished in Washington recently, specifically pointing to flood infrastructure projects and funding, as well as road infrastructure projects as well. I also asked him what his goals are for this next term in office, and he said while there's a lot that's been done to help Louisiana roads, there's still a long way to go and a lot more infrastructure projects that he hopes to tackle in the coming time. Now, talking to people out here today, even before these numbers started trickling in, they said they weren't worried about him. They thought he would do just fine, as he did. But what they were saying is they were keeping their eyes on all of these races going on around the country, because that could impact how successful some of this legislation that they say he's been able to get through in the past year would become if things change over in Washington. But for now, live in Baton Rouge for your local election headquarters, I'm Amber Smith.
All right, Amber, thank you. And so Congressman Garrett Graves going into his second term, and also had been mentioned before as a potential challenger to Governor John Bel Edwards in the governor's race, but Garrett Graves keeping his congressional seat.
Right, again, a big night for incumbents in our state when it comes to the congressional races. The question is does any of this come as a surprise? Local 33 political reporter Fred Childers joins us now with pollster John Couvion for some answers to that. Guys?
Yeah, hi, Jean and Dion. We have been talking about the 6 congressional races throughout the state. We called those earlier. John Couvion called them for all of the incumbents. So we've re-elected 5 Republican representatives and 1 Democratic. Going to the national stage all night, John, the big question has been, will Democrats take the House? I know at last check it looked like a dozen seats had flipped over to the Democrats. Are you ready to call it for the Democrats?
Absolutely. So basically what's happened is this. There are 16 seats that have currently flipped for the Democrats in the House. There's another 30 Republican-held seats that's too close to call, and that's before California has even closed its polls, and there's 14 Republicans in that delegation. In other words, Republicans would have to basically do an inside straight to keep the House. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're looking at a 30-seat plus Republican loss in the House. In the Senate, however, it looks like the Republicans are going to pick up 2 seats, and they will keep that chamber.
I know you have been talking about the early voting numbers. They were fantastic, and
yes,
they beat expectations. Also, total turnout tonight has beat even your expectations, and you've been optimistic about it.
It's kind of interesting. I was thinking that it was going to be a 35% total voter turnout, or about 1.05 million. Thus far, and that's with 10% of the precincts still out, we're looking at a 1.3 million voter turnout. In other words, we're talking about 45% voter turnout for a race where you didn't even have a U.S. Senate or gubernatorial race on the ballot, which to me is nothing but fascinating.
Yeah, how does that compare to, say, the midterm elections from 2014?
So it would roughly equal the 2014 turnout. It would be much greater than the turnout in the 2016 runoff where Senator Kennedy was elected.
Wow.
We're only about 30% of the vote turned out then.
That's amazing. So you're predicting we could see about at least 40% turnout.
And I'm thinking it could honestly pass 45% because we still have 10% of the precincts remaining. So this could quite possibly be a very high turnout race, considering there really wasn't that much on the ballot. So, you know, Louisianans did a very good job tonight.
All right. Plenty to celebrate. There you have it. Okay. We'll send it back to you, Dion and Jean.
All right, guys, thank you. Well, there were also several proposed constitutional amendments on the ballot.
Yeah, number 1 on the ballot, if passed, would prohibit convicted felons from seeking or holding public office or appointment within 5 years of completing their sentence unless they were pardoned. And voters resoundingly said yes to that. That's with 93% of precincts reporting.
All right, let's go on to Amendment 2, which was the biggest talk over the past few weeks.
Yeah, this is the one, of course, that changes Louisiana's Jim Crow era law law requiring a 10-2 vote in non-capital felony cases, putting us in line with 48 other states and requiring those unanimous jury verdicts in those cases.
And as you can see right here, 64% of the votes saying yes. And also knowing that this has passed, various members of the Unanimous Jury Coalition issued a statement saying what we have accomplished today in Louisiana is not just about rectifying past injustices, and surely we know the work we have done will prevent injustice in the future. That's just part of the quote that they sent to us about the passage of this amendment.
Moving on now to Amendment number 3, which had a lot of complicated wording about the donation of the use of public equipment and personnel by a political subdivision upon request from another political subdivision.
So basically what that means is that one government entity would more easily be able to borrow the tools, equipment, or even personnel from another government entity without much red tape being involved. And so with that one being there, you could see 56% of the vote for this next amendment, which is amendment number 4, asking people if they would support an amendment to remove authority to appropriate or dedicate monies in the Transportation Trust Fund to state police for traffic patrol purposes. And once again, that is at this point a majority there, 56% saying yes to that.
And now to Amendment number 5 would approve extend eligibility for special property tax treatments to property in trust, and on that one, with 93% of precincts reporting again there, 71% voting yes.
And finally, Amendment number 6 dealing with reappraisal of the value of residential property by more than 50%, resulting in increase in property taxes being phased in over a 4-year period, basically saying that if your property value is increased, you don't have to pay all that at one time. 57% of voters saying yes to that one.
Obviously, people real informed on that one. Turning to Livingston Parish, where this one may come of a little bit of a surprise to you. There was that half-cent sales tax, which was aimed at making Livingston Parish schools safer, would have put a law enforcement officer in every school in the parish at a cost of $103,000 a year.
And take a look at the results of what voters are saying. Voters are saying no to this, and this is what Sheriff Jason Ard was in response to the Valentine's Day school shooting in Florida, but the voters in Livingston Parish saying no to this at 56%.
Yes, and Sheriff Ard actually saying with that, if this were to happen, those resource officers could have been in place by January.
Yeah.
So we'll have to talk to him later this week, see where they go from here.
Yeah, and if they may try again.
Yep. All right, let's take a break. We'll be back with more election coverage. Local 33 News at 10 will be right back.